Welcome to today's lecture. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic of image processing and computer vision, and it is uh, Fourier transform. So let us start with the Fourier series, which I think you must have studied in your engineering mathematics course. What Fourier series says? It says that if you have a periodic function, it can be expressed in terms of weighted sum of sine and cosine functions. Right? I think you must be knowing this. So if your ft is the function given, then you can say that this ft can be expressed as equal to a naught plus some cos functions plus some sine functions, right? And how many cos functions and how many sine functions you need to make right side equal to left side, that depends on what function you have, and theoretically you can say that you need infinite number of cos and sine functions to make the left side equal to right side. Okay, that is why you are saying the summation is n equal to 1 to infinity in cos, and in sine case also the summation is from n equal to 1 to infinity. Now this a naught, an and bn that you see, they are the constants, and you can say they are some kind of weights that you are assigning to a particular sine or cosine wave that you are using to represent the left side function. And these constants can be evaluated with the help of these expressions. Okay, and if you just closely see these functions, you will see that when n is equal to 1, you will have here 1 into f naught t. That means you will have only f naught t. And but when you have 2, n equal to 2, then you will have 2 f naught t, you can say. When n equal to 3, you will have 3 f naught t, and so on. So in the first case, you have just f naught here. In the next case, you can say that all other things are same, but like for example, the t term is there, but other than t, whatever you are going to multiply here, that becomes 3 f naught. Similarly, first time it is f naught, then 2 f naught, then 3 f naught, then 4 f naught. The f naught is called the fundamental frequency, and when you go higher and higher, you see that when you make n equal to 2, your f naught becomes, or the frequency becomes 2 f naught. Then when you make n equal to 3, the frequency becomes 3 f naught. So that means when you increase the n, the frequency of this cos and these sine waves, that keeps increasing. So for n equal to 1, whatever cos and sine function or the sine or cosine waveform that you have, that will have low frequency, but as you increase n, frequency will keep increasing. But whatever frequency you are going to get, that will be actually the multiple of f naught. So first time you have f naught, but next time you will have 2 f naught, 3 f naught, so multiple of f naught. So we say that whatever frequency you are going, it is in harmonics with the fundamental frequency, right? So if you have f naught as the fundamental frequency, what you are going to get will be just harmonics of that particular frequency. Okay, so let us try to see this with the help of this example. So suppose ft is the function that you want to represent in terms of by using the Fourier series. So let's say ft can be represented by sum of this first function, then second function, and then third function. So if you sum all these values, what you will get ultimately will be ft, right? So for example, if this is your one axis, and if you just, for a particular point, if you just take all the values and then sum them, your corresponding value in your ft domain you will get. Okay, so if suppose this particular point here is represented with the help of this point, and this point here. So if you sum all these three values, you will find that that value will be equal to whatever you have here. Okay. Fine. And one fundamental secret of the universe, you can say that any given waveform can be represented in terms of weighted sum of sine and cosine waveforms. Okay, so you can say that this is kind of universal truth, which says that any given function, any given waveform can be represented using sum of sine and cosine waveforms. And in this case, when we are talking about Fourier series, please remember that we are talking about a periodic function. So I hope you know, you understand what we mean by periodic function. So if you have a function, you can say that after a certain interval, it repeats. So if suppose it has an interval t here like this, so if you again go this side for t more values, you will find that the same values will repeat, right? So Fourier series is actually defined for a function which is a periodic function. Okay, let us see that with the help of another example. Again, here we have a function given to us, like let's say this is ft. This is the function ft given to us, and we want to represent this in terms of Fourier series. So here we see, to represent this, we are saying that when let's say you just take a very simple waveform 3 sin x, you find that what you get here is bit similar to what you have here, right? But when you and you can say that this first term is coming from the very first term, or this first waveform is coming from the very first waveform that you are getting from this expression. So let's say for n equal to 1, whatever you are getting here, that you are using in this case here. So when you are using just that waveform which you are getting for the fundamental frequency, let's say that waveform is this one, A. So when you are using just A to represent this given function ft, then you will see that you will get this, because you have just one function. So what representation you are going to get is just this function on the right side, that is written this function. Okay. Now let's say you increase the frequency. You make frequency 3x. So when you make frequency 3x, you get a new waveform this. Now when you sum this and this, when you sum these two, A and B, you get this. Now you see that this is compared to the first one, A plus B is close to your original waveform. Similarly, when you let us take the this term sine 5x and corresponding to that, let's say this is the waveform. So in that case, if you now add A, B and C, you get ABC, which is now further, you see that further close to the given function. And similarly, when you increase the frequency and get D, and you add D also to that, you find that whatever you are getting is further close to what you have in this original function. Okay, so I mean, from this sequence, you see that if you keep increasing the frequency, you will find that you will be getting closer to your original function that you are representing. Right, so that is why how many frequencies you need in this particular case, let's say, to exactly represent this given function with the help of sine and cosine waves, we can say theoretically infinite in this particular case. Then only you can represent the given function with the help of weighted sum of the sine and cosine waveforms. Okay, but we'll see that, I mean, practically we don't need to go and include all the possible frequencies. We'll see if we increase frequency up to some extent, we will be able to still manage the things. Okay, let us see this another example where, let us say the idea is, so here in this previous example, the problem was to represent this given function ft in terms of weighted sum of sine and cosine waves. So we have represented that given function with the help of these weighted sum of these waveforms. Okay, now we have the similar problem here again. So you can say this is another example where the question is to represent this square wave. The blue curve that you see here is a square wave, and question here is to represent this square wave with the help of Fourier series, or with the help of weighted sum of sine and cosine functions. So when you do the Fourier transform of, compute the Fourier series for this, you see that you get something like this. What you see here, you get the values like this. Okay. So the demonstration that you see here, it actually it tells you that when you are increasing the frequency. So for example, just a minute. Yeah. So yeah. So suppose if you see whatever you see at this moment, it is actually telling you that the waveform that you are getting on the right side here, yeah, whatever you are getting here on on the left side here, this has been obtained by considering the frequencies 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 and 11. So corresponding to these frequencies, whatever sine waves that you get, let's say here, if you sum them, you get this waveform, what you see on the left side here. Okay. Now if you if you see this animation, it is actually showing you that as your frequencies are increasing in this direction, that means you are including more and more waveforms for the representation. You see that this curve that you see here, or this waveform that you see on the left side here, becomes closer and closer to the square wave. Right. Let me just run the animation and you can see. Just observe in this diagram, you will find that the frequencies are increasing, which means to represent this waveform, you are adding more and more sine waves with higher and higher frequencies. And when you are adding those waveforms having higher and higher frequencies, you will see that this left side waveform will become closer and closer to the square wave. Right? In this example, if you see, if you just take the sine function with fundamental frequency, let's say f naught, you get a sine curve like this, which is denoted here with red color. Now this sine curve is bit similar to square wave, but it is not exactly similar, right? But when you keep increasing the frequency and keep adding those new and new sine waveforms that you are getting, you will find that the added value that you will get will become closer and closer to the square wave. Right? So now let's just observe this animation here. So you see the frequencies are increasing. Frequencies are increasing here in this direction, and when the frequencies are increasing, this waveform that you see on the left side, it is getting closer and closer to the square waveform. Okay. I hope things are clear until this point. Any doubt? All right. So now let us discuss what is a Fourier transform. Okay. So in the Fourier series, or before that, let me just make one more thing clear. So whenever you have a function given, you have now two options of representing the function. Okay. For example, this square wave is given. Now to represent this square wave, you have two options. One, using this original representation that you see here, maybe you can say in this direction you have t, and in this direction you have ft, and just by using t and ft, you define this waveform. Okay, or you define this square wave. That means you can say that when the values are from -3 to 0, the value is -1 for this function. When the values for t are from 0 to 3, this function ft has value 1, and that completely defines this waveform. Okay. Now with the help of Fourier series, you have alternate representation that you can get actually for this waveform. In this original domain, you can say that waveform is defined like this, as I just said, that ft equal to -1 for t between -3 and 0, ft equal to 1 when t is between 0 and 3. Okay, that defines the waveform. Now with the help of Fourier series, you can say that this waveform can be defined, this square waveform that we are getting here, this can be defined with the help of some sine and cosine functions, weighted sum of sine and cosine functions. So now let's say you have to tell this alternate representation. Do you need to tell this entire expression that you are having here? No. You need to just tell what are the frequencies you are using for this representation. Once you tell the frequency, you know this this formula. If you keep those frequencies in the formula, you will find that you will get the function that it is representing. Okay. So this is very important to remember here that for any given function in the original domain, function can be defined with the help of the variables that you have there. But when you take that function to frequency domain, when you do the Fourier transform, more precisely here we are talking about Fourier series. So when you convert this given function with the help of Fourier series, and you get a representation, you can say in some sense that is an alternate representation. But to define that alternate representation, you just need to tell those frequencies. Okay. So in this case, you can say that, let us say this square wave is represented by using the sine waves of frequency 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 and 11. So you can just tell that this square wave can be represented in the Fourier by using the Fourier series by using frequencies 1, 3, 5, 9 and 11. Okay. So in the alternate representation, you just need to tell the frequency values. Okay. So normally we also refer, so if you see this example, you can say that there is a kind of domain change. Here you are talking about let's say things in terms of time. That when time is between -3 to 0, the value is this. When time is between 0 to 3, the value is this. But when you come to this alternate representation, you don't talk about time, you talk about frequency. So you can say that you have moved from time domain to frequency domain. In the time domain, things are or any function is defined with the help of time and its value at various times. But there in the alternate representation, the same thing can be defined with the help of defining the frequencies. Okay, once you just define the frequencies, the complete representation can be obtained by using those frequencies. Okay, so please remember this one. Okay, now let us talk about Fourier transform. So Fourier transform is also, you can say, a bit similar to Fourier series, but Fourier transform is used when the functions are non-periodic. When the function is periodic, you can say that you will use you can say that you should use Fourier series. But when the functions are non-periodic, in that case we should use Fourier transform. Or in other way, you can say if there is a function which is non-periodic, you can say that the function has period infinite. So when a function has infinite period, maybe you can say in that case you should use Fourier transform. So when the period is finite, you should go for Fourier series. But when the period is infinite, you can say you should use Fourier transform. Okay. Here also, in the case of Fourier, in case of Fourier transform, also the given non-periodic function is represented in terms of weighted sum of sine and cosine waves. So here also, the in the alternate representation, you represent the given function in terms of weighted sum of sine and cosine waves, but you will see that in the formula the things will change. Okay. So in the alternate representation, here also we are going to use sine and cosine only, but to obtain these sine and cosine, the formula that we will be using will be different. Okay. And here the function that we are using or the function for which we are going to get the Fourier representation, that function can be a real valued function and it can be a complex function also. In our case, like for example, we will be talking about images, later we will see. So in our case, the function is going to be real valued only, but in general it can be a complex function too. Okay. And there are some names which we will, when we talk about Fourier transform or Fourier series, these names we may we'll see, we will be using them interchangeably. Like sometimes we'll say function, or sometimes we'll say signal or waveform, and they precisely actually mean the same thing. Right? Sometimes I may say sine wave or sine function or sine waveform, but you should not be confused with that. They all actually refer to the same thing. Okay. So precisely what is a Fourier transform? So you can say with the help of Fourier transform, you are breaking a given waveform to an alternate representation, and in this alternate representation you are using sine and cosine functions. Sorry. Okay. And later we will see when you are representing these sine and cosine functions, some of the sine functions will have low frequency, some of them will have high frequency. So in some of the applications we will be interested in components which have high frequencies. In some cases we will be interested in components or the sine and cosine waveforms where the frequency is low. And there are some applications where we may be interested something in the frequencies which are neither very high nor very low. But in most of the applications we will see that we will be interested in high frequencies and low frequencies. Okay. So why we are studying Fourier transform here? Because our images are you can say non-periodic functions. So if you have to get alternate representation for the images, we should go for the Fourier transform. Okay, because images are non-periodic functions. So with the help of Fourier transform, we can convert our images from the original domain to the frequency domain, right, or the representation where we are talking about representation in terms of frequencies. Okay. All right. So when we define this new representation for any given function, we can say that, or if we let's say talk about the image processing or doing operations on images, if we use this alternate representation that we just discussed, then we can say that we have two possibilities. One is that you have an image given here, right? Whatever you want to do on this image, you can do in this domain, right? And this is a normal image where you have, let's say, it is 10 cross 10 image. So you have 10 cross 100 pixels. Every pixel has some intensity. Now you want to do some operation on these intensities. So you can directly do on those pixels, right? But now you have an alternate representation. You say that this image can be converted to an alternate representation using frequencies. Okay. So now you have another option. If you don't want to, let's say, do operation in this domain, you want to do operation in this domain, you can convert your image from this original domain to this new domain, and then you can do operation in this domain. Whenever you are doing operation in the original domain, we say that it is normally in case of Fourier, when we talk about in general Fourier series and Fourier transform, we say this is a time domain. This is the left side is time domain, and this is the frequency domain. Okay, but in case of images, we will normally use a word spatial domain. Right? So for the time domain, we will call that this is a spatial domain. We will see later why we are saying spatial domain. So this time domain thing is a spatial domain here. So when you are operating on images, you have two options. Either you can operate on the image in the spatial domain, or you can take the image by using Fourier transform to frequency domain, and you can do operation on in this domain. Okay, there are two possibilities. When you are in this space, we say that we are in a real space, right? When you are in a spatial domain, we say that we are in the real space. When we are in the frequency domain, we say that we are in Fourier space. So when you are performing operations on images, we can say that we have two possibilities. Either we can work on the images in real space, or we can work on the images in Fourier space. Okay. Now the question comes: why do we need to convert given image to Fourier transform? Why can't we directly work on the original pixels? What is the need of going from frequency domain from your real domain to frequency domain? So we'll see that in many cases we'll get better analysis and interpretation of images if we convert our images to Fourier domain. Right? This is one advantage. And second, we'll see that there are some operations which can be very efficiently performed if you convert your images to frequency domain. Okay. We'll see that if you are directly working in the spatial domain, the operation will be very costly. But if you just convert that to Fourier domain, the operation can be done very efficiently in very less time. Okay. So because of these advantages, most of the time we don't work on images in the real domain or in their original domain. We go to the Fourier domain or frequency domain and then perform the operations. Okay. So normally whenever you are working in the if you see the original image that is given to us, it will be in a spatial domain. We can directly, if you want to work in the spatial domain or in the real space, we can directly work on those pixels and then do the operation. But if we, let's say, want to do operations on in the frequency domain, so what you have to do first, whatever you have, whatever function or whatever image given to you, you have to convert that to frequency domain. So you have to take the Fourier transform of it. Then in the second step, whatever intended operation is, that intended operation you need to perform. Okay. And third thing, which is again very essential. So when we take our images to frequency domain, when we see the examples, we'll see that it will be very difficult for us to understand what exactly that image is saying. If the representation of any image is given in the Fourier domain, and if you, let's say, you are asked to tell what is this image, it will be very difficult for you to tell that this image basically represents this particular object or seen. Okay, so it will be, so for human, it is difficult to see things or find out the information from the image that is it is very difficult to find out the information from the image when it is in the frequency domain. So again, let's say you wanted to do some operation on the on your image, and let us say, for example, you wanted to remove noise. Okay, so to remove the noise, you thought that you should not do this noise removal in the original domain, you should do it in the frequency domain. So you will take your image to the frequency domain. But once the noise removal is done, you have to again take back your image back to your original domain, so that again we can see and get the things from the image. Okay, so whenever we are working in the frequency domain, please remember, we will first do Fourier transform to take the image into frequency domain. We'll perform that the operation, but after that again we will do inverse Fourier transform to take our image back from frequency domain to original domain, so that again human can see it and then perceive properly. Okay, so please remember, whenever we are working in the frequency domain, these three steps are important. First, Fourier transform to take your image to frequency domain, then performing that intended operation there, and then performing the inverse Fourier transform. Okay, so whenever you are performing Fourier transform, we are taking our image from spatial domain to frequency domain, and when we are performing inverse Fourier transform, we are again bringing back our image from frequency domain to spatial domain. Okay, now let us have some idea about what we mean by high frequency and low frequency in our images. Okay, so one thing I think you can very easily see that, suppose, and I hope you you know what we mean by high frequency and low frequency. Let us say, take this example. Suppose you have a signal like this. Okay, and there is another fixed signal like this. Right? So it's obvious to say that this signal has high frequency, this signal has low frequency. Right? I don't think anybody has doubt in this. Now let us say there is a original signal given to us, which is a very slow varying signal like this, and you have to get its equivalent representation in terms of frequencies, right? So let's say you have to take this function ft to frequency domain. So when you have to take this function into frequency domain, let us say this is obtained by summing this and these two functions, let's say, and they are not run properly, but let's assume that, let's say, they are sine waves. Okay, now let's say there is another function ft given to us, which is not varying as slow as this function. It is varying, let's say, faster compared to this one. Suppose it is varying like this. Okay, this is the original function ft. Now when you are representing this function with the help of sum of sine and cosine wave, it is obvious to see that whatever waveform you are going to use here, they need to be also fast varying, right? So when you have a slow varying function, when you go to the frequency domain, the functions that you are going to use to represent this given original function, that will be represented normally using low frequency signals. But if your original signal is having high frequencies, high variations, then to represent this signal in the frequency domain, whatever sine waves or cosine waves you are using, they also need to be of high frequency. Okay, I guess this point is clear to everybody. So let us analyze our images. Yeah. Now when we are converting our images to frequency domain, either we can take the entire image and then convert that image to frequency domain, that can be done. But let us say, for the simplicity, we are just taking one row of the image. Let us say the image which is falling below this red line. So all these, all the pixels which are falling below this red line, those pixels are considered for the, let's say, and whatever function you are going to get, or whatever function out of these pixels you are going to get, that function is going to be represented with the help of, let's say, Fourier transform. So what you are going to get here, if you, in terms of, let's say, this is your time axis, and whatever value you are getting at a particular pixel, that will be either 0 or 1. That value is, let's say, telling you ft. So if you plot your ft here, this is your t axis, and you on this y axis you plot your ft, what you will find, so, and on this axis you are going to plot the intensity values that you are going to encounter here when you are moving from left to right below this red line. Okay, so you see at the beginning there are some white pixels, so your curve will be like, I mean your this function ft will be like this here, let's say. Okay, let's say at the beginning it is here like this, then again you see O, the edge of O, and at edge, and I'm sorry, let us say for white we are saying that this is 1 value, because normally for white we will consider 1 and for black we will consider 0. So when we are at the beginning here, the values are white, so let us say you are representing them here like this. Okay, but as soon as you encounter this edge of O, the value becomes 0, so you will come down. And for a very short period your values are small, values are black, or here values are 0, and suddenly, I mean after that you see that again this interior region of O is white, so your function will again go back here, and for longer duration it is white. Then again you will find an edge, so it will again come down. For short period it will be 0, then again it will go down, and like that. So you will find that your function will be something like this. Okay. You see that when you are going from left to right, whatever function you are plotting here, it has high variations, right? Lot of variations are there. And you can understand the amount of variation that you have here if you compare the variation with respect to this image. Now if you see, let's say you are again drawing this pixel, this function ft for this image, and you are considering all those pixels only which are falling below this red line. So basically we are just considering the conversion of that particular row to frequency domain, right? So in this case you see when you are moving from here to here, maybe initially the pixels are black, then they become white, and then slowly and slowly they are white, and then again they come back and then become black or something like this, right? So now if you compare the variation that you see here and here, very easily you can say that variations are more in this case, variations are less in the next later case. Okay, so in your images, if you find that the content of your image is has high variance, it is varying fast when you move in a row or in a column, then you can say that when you go to the frequency domain, that particular image will be represented using high frequencies. Okay, when you have image where the features are slow varying features, if you go to the frequency domain and see its representation, you will find that that image will be represented using low frequencies. Okay, so if let's say I say that when you go to frequency domain, your image has low frequencies, what it indirectly it says that the content of your image is slow varying. If I say that the image in the frequency domain is represented using high frequencies, then we can say that the image is the content of the image is fast varying. Okay, and there is another alternate notion you can get from this. Whenever you are saying that the content is fast varying, that can only happen when the objects that your image contain, they are big, right? In other sense, you can say that when the scale is high. When the objects are small, you will find that the variations will be more. So for example, here you see in this image, you have big objects, so the variation is less. But if you go to this area, this image here, there are a lot of small objects, you can say. So that is why the variation is more here, and that is why you need high frequencies. So with the help of, in frequency domain, if you, with the help of whether you have high frequency representation or low frequency representation, you can also find out what kind of content you may have in your image. If your representation in the frequency domain is is done with the help of low frequencies, that means the objects that you have in your image, they are big. And if you have high frequency representation in the frequency domain, then that means the objects that you have considered in your image, they are small. Okay. So this is another alternate interpretation that you can get from the kind of frequencies that you have for its representation. Okay. So now let us see the formula. Till now we have just understood why we need Fourier transform, or what is Fourier transform, or what is Fourier series and all that. But now let us see the mathematical formula for it. So for example, given an image, how to convert it to Fourier domain or to Fourier space, right? So we'll see the Fourier transform for 1D case first, and then we'll see for the 2D case. And first we are seeing the Fourier transform for continuous domain, and then we'll go for the discrete domain. And for us, discrete domain is applicable because our images are discrete images. They are not continuous functions, right? So first we'll, in Fourier transform, we are going to discuss first 1D case, and within that 1D case, we are going to discuss case for continuous function. Then we'll again go for the, for the continuous function 2D case, and then we will move to discrete Fourier transform, where we will again discuss 1D and 2D cases, okay? So here, if a function, 1D function is, fx is given to us, and we want to find out its Fourier representation, or we want to take it to the Fourier domain, or we can say we want to get the Fourier transform of this function fx, we can use this formula. What this formula says? This formula is saying that whatever function you have given, you are given with, in that function fx, you multiply e to the power minus j 2 pi x u dx, and you integrate this from minus infinity to infinity. Whatever you are getting, that will be the representation of your fx in the frequency domain. Okay, so yeah, and in this function, this x is the variable from the original domain, from the spatial domain, you can say, and the other variable that we are having here, u, this represents frequency here. So u is the frequency here, u tells you about the frequency, and x is the variable from the input domain. Okay, so given fx, you can use directly this formula to take it to frequency domain from the original space. Okay, and if you see this formula, you say that there is a j component here, right, which is actually telling that this quantity that you are going to get, it is not going to be a real quantity, it is going to be a complex quantity. Okay, so whatever output you are going to get from here, this is actually going to be something like a plus j b, right? So this is your real component, and this is your imaginary component. And why do we need imaginary component here? So the reason is that we, in this case, whatever representations we are having in terms of sine and cosine waves, only those waves are not important, or the nature of those waves is not important, or more precisely, their magnitude is not only important, what phase they carry, that is also important, right? So to define the phase, we need this complex quantity. And as I just said, whenever you are taking your function to Fourier domain, again, to visualize it, you have to again come back to the original domain. So whenever we are talking about Fourier transform, we need to also know what is inverse Fourier transform, right? And inverse Fourier transform will be used to take your function from frequency domain to the original domain, or spatial domain, you can say. So let's say your fx, you have converted to frequency domain, and you have got fu. So, and now you want to take fu back to your original domain. So you can use this formula. You can indicate this from minus infinity to infinity. You can consider fu here, fu multiplied by e to the power j 2 pi x u du. If you just integrate it from minus infinity to infinity, you will get the representation in the spatial domain. Okay, and these formulas we have to just understand. We don't need to know, we don't need to bother how they are derived. Right? So for us, their use is more important compared to the mathematics behind them. Right? So that is why I'm just straight away telling you the formula, not the mathematics behind them. So for Fourier transform, we will use this formula, and for inverse Fourier transform, we will use this formula, and both these formulas are defined for continuous domain case. Okay, let us see this this example and try to understand the Fourier transform. So let's say your function fx is defined like this here. So fx is 1 when your x is mod x is between less than 1, or alternatively you can say that when x is between minus 1 and 1, the function fx is having value 1, and when it is When you are outside this range, that means you are when you are from minus infinity to minus 1 or from 1 to infinity, there the value is 0. So this function has value 1 when x is between minus 1 and 1, otherwise it is 0. Now the question is to convert or to get the Fourier transform of this. How will you do the Fourier transform of this? You will go to your function that you have for, or the formula that you have for the Fourier transform. This is the formula for the Fourier transform. In this case, you have to just replace fx by your definition, and then you have to integrate it from minus infinity to infinity. So that's what we are exactly going to do here. So given this function, we are using this formula. This is the original formula. In this formula, you can break this formula into 3 parts: minus infinity to minus infinity to minus 1, then minus 1 to 1, and then 1 to infinity. So you'll find that minus infinity to infinity, minus infinity to 1, fx is 0. So the term will vanish. Similarly, from 1 to infinity, the term the fx is 0. So again, you will not get anything because of that. So only you will get non-zero value between minus 1 and 1. So between minus 1 and 1, fx is 1. So you have just multiplied 1 here, and then the remaining term e to the power minus j 2 pi xu is there. Now if you just do the integration, you will get this final answer. So this is, you can say that for given function fx, which is this function, the representation that you are getting in the frequency domain is this one. And if you plot it u versus fu, you find that this function looks like this, and this function is called the sinc function. This is a very standard function in signal and image processing domain. This is called sinc function, and it is called sinc because as you move to infinity or minus infinity, you will find that this function will come closer and closer to 0. Okay. Yeah, this is another example where now the function is defined between 0 and capital X. The function is defined at fx. The function fx is defined as a. And for other value it is 0. That means from capital X to infinity or from minus infinity to 0, this function has value 0. Only it has non-zero value, which is a, between 0 and x. Okay. So again use the same formula. This is the formula for the Fourier transform. In place of fx, now between 0 and capital X, you keep the value of fx as a, and in the rest of the cases, in the 2 other segments, minus infinity to 0 and x to plus infinity, the value is 0, so they are not appearing here. And you now do the integration of this expression, then finally you will see that you get a function like this. Okay. Now you see here that this function is not a real function, right? This expression is not a real expression. So how to plot this? Because if your function in the previous case it was a real function, you don't have any imaginary term in this case, so you could easily plot it. You plotted here u versus fu, but in this case you cannot plot u versus fu because your fu is not real. So there are different ways of plotting it. In one, you can take the magnitude of fu and you can plot it. Okay, what is exactly done here? The other ways are like you could just consider its imaginary component and plot it separately, take its real component and plot it separately. Okay, so that is another possibility. Okay, so whatever representation you are getting here from this Fourier transform formula, if it is a complex quantity in a generalized fashion, you can write like this, that your fu is ru plus fu is equal to ru plus j times iu, right? Where ru is denoting the real part of the expression, and iu is denoting the imaginary part of the expression. And alternatively, what you have here can be written like this also, where if you have e to the power, let's say j theta, that is equal to cos theta plus j sin theta. So if you use that this notation, if you replace cos theta plus j sin theta by ei theta, then you will find that whatever you are going to get for fu, that can be written like this. Where what is fu? Fu is the magnitude of the Fourier transform that you obtained, and given a complex quantity a plus jb, how do you compute its magnitude? You take the square of the real and imaginary components and then take the square root. So you have RU a real component, IU imaginary component. So you take the square of those components and then take the square root. So that gives you the magnitude of your FU. And this is called magnitude spectrum. Okay. And similarly, I mean, as you define the angle for any complex quantity, you use the same formula. So then you get the phase information, which is nothing but tan inverse IU by RU. Okay. And whatever you get from here, that is called the phase spectrum or phase angle, because here from here you are going to get angle. Given IU and RU, you will get, I mean, if you take the tan inverse of that, you will get an angle. That angle is called phase angle, or I mean, here we also call it as phase spectrum. Okay. Okay. And from this, we define this another term which is called power spectrum or spectral density. Here, this power spectrum or spectral density is just the square of the magnitude that you have. So when you take the square of the magnitude spectrum, then that square root actually I mean goes off, and what you get is just R square U plus I square U, right? Because you are basically taking the square of this expression. So when you take the square of this expression, this root will disappear. Okay. And we see that whatever quantities we get here, they are very small quantities. They are very small. So when you plot them and try to visualize them, actually they will be very, very, I mean, like since they are very small, it will be very difficult to observe them. So that is why normally whenever we plot them, we don't plot them in the original domain. We take the log of that value and then plot it. We'll see the example, and with the help of this log, actually we will be able to magnify them. So this log function is just used to magnify the values of FU, so that when we are plotting them, we can see them. Okay, so conversion of FU to DU is just done for the visualization purpose. This doesn't have any other application. Okay, any operation that you are doing, you will be doing only on FU, but just to visualize it, we take FU to DU domain by taking the log of it, so that I mean, we can get better visualization. And we have added 1 here. We have not taken directly the log of FU. We have just added 1 here, so that when FU is 0, that case also you can handle. Because if FU becomes 0, then log is not defined for it. So that is why, just to handle that case, we have considered 1 plus FU, not FU, 1 plus FU, so that if FU is 0, or this mod of FU is 0, still we get 1 here, and we can define the log for it. Okay. Fine. So with this, I conclude today's class.